Since taking office a year ago, Zambia's President Hakainde Hichilema has struggled to address one of the key campaign promises to fix the economy and the debt crisis. Under former President Edgar Lungu, Zambia had been unable to agree with the International Monetary Fund's proposed aid package. But on Wednesday, the IMF announced a $1.3 billion support package, which is expected to unlock more financing from other development partners and be an anchor for government reforms. Tabo Kawana, the Ministry of Information spokesperson, says it is time to celebrate what the program brings to the country.
For us, our focus and vision is to grow home investment and foreign direct investment. We do not celebrate the monetary terms. We celebrate the credibility that this program brings to our country.
Given the size of Zambia's debt, $3.5 billion in international bonds and $2.9 billion borrowed from commercial lenders, one of the key questions is whether the IMF's $1.3 billion will cushion the loan repayments. Chiwama Kanyama is an economist and former IMF communications officer.
What the IMF deal does is creates that goodwill to give a proper time because much of it is maturing. Some of it is maturing next year, and have those resources to grow the economy. We need to step before we have those sufficient resources.
The IMF program. Opposition says his economic fund does not think the program will bring relief to Zambia, which he says will remain burdened with unsustainable debt.
IMF programs extended to Zambia in the past, and they have ended up doing more damage to the Zambian economy, especially to the livelihood of the poor.
Action leads the organization and has called on government to lay bare all the facts about the agreements. ActionAid Country Director Nalucha Ziba.
The lack of transparency in this negotiation has been a serious concern for many stakeholders, including ActionAid in Zambia, and we therefore call on the government to allow proper in-depth scrutiny by Zambian citizens.
Part of the process of Zambia reworking its debt will include the signing of a memorandum of understanding with its bilateral creditors committee before the end of the year. That means the debt repayment process is far from Kwangwe, VOA News, Washington.
You can't expect the peer to dismantle the debt. They're the ones who created this debt because they didn't listen to us. How? We told them don't borrow. They continue to borrow. Don't borrow at a high cost. They continue doing that. Don't borrow for consumption. They continue to do that. The debt, debt acquisition. No new debts. Zero. Because you don't want to add more injury to the wound. You don't want to add salt to the wound. Number one. Number two, we restructure the debt that is.
I want to write a moratorium on debt in the current setup. How feasible is it? Because with the budget that I talked about, which is obviously the current administration, the only way we can survive is to borrow outside, because the entire 100% of what they propose has to go towards the payment and the market.
Costa, this is the lack of understanding. This is why we are in a mess. I'm very polite to you because you are making this comment as a journalist. This is absolutely wrong. You can't continue borrowing. Costa, I like you, but you're wrong. Wrong. Capacity to borrow anymore. Your headroom means that if you were borrowing, this is the maximum you borrow. You can borrow up to that much. You see that you just have this space. That space is not there. You have actually overshot your headroom to borrow. Whether you want to borrow or not, if you're a PF, government, you can't borrow anymore. No one will give you money. If they give you money, they'll give you cover. And that cover will keep on giving more. So this is a paradigm shift that we need, my friend. You can't borrow. No one will give you money. Unless they want to take away all your assets. They broken. Not now that is. So, first, moratorium want you to allow me to explain that. Meaning we will not borrow more. Because any further borrowing worsens the situation. Right? In the old
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're catching us from. Welcome to another presentation of the Linda Banks Show on TV Rakweto, and I'm your host, Linda Banks. Now, kindly share this link, tag a friend, let everyone know that TV Rakweto is live on air. I can already see that we have got people joining us. Let's have a quick look and see who is here. We have Nora following Linda as usual. Hi, Nora. Nice to see you. I do like to see where you guys are watching us from. First things first, could you kindly let us know if you can hear us? Can you hear me? Otherwise, I'll be just rumbling on without knowing if you guys can hear us. We have Kingsley. Kingsley, where are you joining us from? Kingsley Fraser. Namwala, Zambia. Who else is here? So we have Lusaka, Avundel, Nyambe. Hi, nice to see you. Good evening from Lusaka. Imanga, nice to see you. Who else is here? Let's have a look. Mazuba from Kafua. Kafua is in the house. That's wonderful. It's good to see. Chicago, goodness me. Who else is here? Can you hear me, you guys? Loud and clear, Nora says. That is fantastic. Who else is here joining us? We have got YouTube, the YouTube family. YouTube, for some bizarre reason, they seem to come much earlier than Facebook. So we have Godfrey from YouTube watching you from Botswana. Wow, that is amazing. Thank you for joining us. Let's see who else is here. Gilbert, Kalitale wangu, wangu tacherwa, mova kopala wangosa. Nice to see you. Let's see who else is here. Mwango chinene. Naitamba na acha na twaisa tuseshe utupuna. Why some say utupuna mleita konava nenu. Notice chef utupuna mweka. Mary, Kingdom Changer. Nice to see you. Mary, where are you from? Livingstone, that is fantastic. That's really lovely. I'm glad you can, I can't see anyone sharing actually. We won't introduce our guest until you guys start sharing the link. Let's have a look. We have Oxford, Joseph Nyundu, Oxford in the house, lovely. We've got Mazabuka, United States, Canada, Australia, Massachusetts. I'm guessing Massachusetts, that's the United States, isn't it? Nice to see you guys. Avundel is in the house. Sound check, please. Nyambe, can you hear me? Guys, can you just type in the comment section below if you can hear me? Someone is saying sound. We need to make sure that we're audible enough before we get started. Just type in the second comment section below if you can hear me, and then we are good to go. Now then, Zambia had embarked on a structural adjustment program in 1992, as most of you will remember. Some of you who are quite young might not. And there was tremendous excitement, hope, and euphoria for a turnaround in this economy. And the Bretton Woods institutions advocated SAP as a condition for borrowing development funds at the time. Now, sadly, hope soon turned from excitement, and it turned into despair and disillusionment for most people. Now, fast forward into the Hichilema Lumango administration, the multi-million-dollar question is, are we more likely to have a short-lived euphoria with this new loan that has just been announced? And to help me discuss this and many other topics, I have been joined by one of Zambia's opposition leaders. He's an economist. His name is Hamdudu. Hi, Mr. Hamdudu. Welcome to the program. I've just added you, but I can't seem to. I think we're having technical problems now. He's literally in the background and we can't seem to add him. Mr. Hamdudu, would you be able to perhaps just log out and come back again? Because for some reason, I'm unable to. Okay, so he has just stepped out and hopefully we should be able to have him. Now, it gives me a great time to have a chat with you guys. How are you? What have you been up to? And how is life like in Zambia at the moment? And for those who are in diaspora, because earlier today I saw some really good news that prices of commodities have started going down. Let's just have a little chat. Let's see who else is here. Oh, that was Mwango. That's really good. Who else is here? Let's have a look. Ndola Pamozi. Okay, Chota, hi, nice to see you. We have got Bright, you're loud and clear, and watching from Lusaka, Zambia. That's really good. Whilst we're waiting for Mr. Hamdudu to log himself in, I'm going to play a couple of videos so that you can have a gist of what we are going to be talking about. Okay.
You have to dismantle the state. They're the ones who created the state. Because they didn't listen to us. How? We told them don't borrow. They continue to borrow. Don't borrow at a high cost. They continue doing that. Don't borrow for consumption. They continue to do that. The answer is in the reverse. Because what we dismantle the debt, number one, the moratorium on debt acquisition. No new debts. Zero. Because you don't want to add more injury to the wound. You don't want to add salt to the wound. Number one. Number two, we restructure the debt that is in there.
I just want to write it to say the moratorium on debt.
Yeah.
In the current setup, how feasible is it? Because with the budget that I talked about, which is obviously the current administration, the only way we can survive is to borrow outside, because the entire 100% of what they propose has to go towards state payment and development.
Costa, this is the lack of understanding. This is why we are in a mess. I'm very polite to you. Because you are making this comment as a journalist. This is absolutely wrong. You can't continue borrowing. Costa, I like you, but you're wrong. And the people who think like that are wrong. First, you have no capacity to borrow anymore. Your headroom is gone. Headroom means that if you have borrowed, this is the maximum you borrow. You can borrow up to that much. You see that you just have this space. That space is not there. You have actually overshot your headroom to borrow. Whether you want to borrow or not, if you're a peer, government, you can't borrow anymore. No one will give you money. If they give you money, they'll give you karawa. And that karawa will keep on giving more. So this is a paradigm shift that we need, my friend. You can't borrow. No one will give you money unless they want to take away all your assets, the whole country. And we will not allow that as citizens. That's what PF has done. So, first, moratorium on borrowing. I insist on that. And I want you to allow me to explain that. Meaning we will not borrow more. Because any further borrowing worsens the situation. Right? In the old
Mr. Hamdudu, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Linda. I disappeared, you know, in the hills where I am. The internet is not the best ally.
No, I can tell. But this is show business. We just have to be prepared for anything, don't we? And it's live TV. You just have to go with it. Now, I'd like to take a moment to say a huge thank you to our audience. They have stayed put. They're not going anywhere. So you seem to be a very popular politician, and it's very unusual for politicians to be popular. They are literally hanging on. So welcome to
Linda Banks. It's because I'm handsome.
Is that what it is?
Okay.
That is great. Let's just our husband is tuned in. Goodness, lots of comments coming through. Thank you very much, guys, for staying on. I can see someone with an angry emoji. I would just say, pace yourself. Don't start getting angry too soon. Mr. Hamdudu has not even spoken yet. Just calm down. Now, welcome to the program. I've never hosted you personally, have I? You visited Bakwetu, but I wasn't present at the time. I was glad.
Wow, I missed you with the now High Commissioner to Australia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed. Well, welcome. Now, you have been on record for supporting this deal that the New Dawn has just secured themselves and the Zambian people. Now, before we get into that, I just want to know, because I missed the very first interview that you had with the team, I want to know a little bit about you, as in, where do you hail from and how did you get into politics?
Well, this is a very simple guy, born in Monze, educated in Monze, and came to university and did economics. Worked here and there, Namibia, here before I went to Namibia, and went into parliament in 2006. I was in parliament for 10 years, from 06 to 2016. And as life could be, I now run a political party with a member of parliament. By the way, there are 3 political parties with representation in parliament, and we are one of them. There's UPND, PF, and ourselves. So I'm a leader of a political party with representation in parliament. So by and large, I'm the 3rd largest political party in Zambia by representation.
Yeah.
So that's the simple Hamdudu, but we will discuss as we go along.
Absolutely. Now, on Friday, 2nd of July, you wrote on your social media platform, and I quote, "In our current foreign debt distress situation and prevailing global economic play, the IMF-backed economic reform program remains the most feasible solution. Therefore, the $1.3 billion IMF supported economic reform program approval deserves commendation." You went further to say, this is good for our economic recovery process. So well done to President Hakainde Hichilema and your team for this milestone, a good base for further positive economic reforms. And obviously this was met with a lot of praise from your followers, who now hail you as one of the most sober and objective opposition leaders. Now, so based on that, I have a couple of questions for you. Firstly, what is it about you, Mr. Hamdudu, that enables you to remain sober and objective in this political dispensation that, to be honest, is marred with criticism and sometimes unpalatable phrases to the sitting president, despite the positive strides that he may be making? What makes you different?
Well, I believe in new politics. I believe that Zambia is due for the new kind of politics that are issue-based. And this has been my view from the time I was in parliament. I was perturbed, even the time I was in parliament, with the corrosive and aggressive politics against each other. I don't believe in that because I think politics must not be so aggressive engagement to one another. Politics must be an issue of having, exchanging different viewpoints and putting up your proposal to the Zambian people, and you must remain friends. So I believe in politics of civility and maturity. Just like where you are, politics must be about issues, not about personalities. And so I believe in politics of issues, politics of political discourse, if that is a politics that will take this country to the next level. And therefore, I decided with my colleagues deliberately to do issue-based politics. Unfortunately, in the banks, this kind of politics is not very popular, but it's the right thing to do. And we will walk that road. Unpopular as it is, we will do issue-based politics. Hopefully, we win in the future, that we can change from this toxic politics that has bedeviled our country. I can tell you, in the last 25 years, and I know where we lost it, where politics became an issue of personalities.
Where do you think we lost it?
Well, I was already an adult in 1990 when we went to multi-party. There was some decency at the beginning. But lo and behold, before 1996 elections, the issue of politics of power came back. The very politics we fought against the one-party state, the politics of power, as opposed to the politics of policies. And the political contestation becomes center stage in our politics. Until we climb down from the politics of power to politics of issues, we will not make much progress. I want to tell you that it's not the first time we are having this kind of corrosive politics. Whether you are a ruling party or opposition political party, I think our people deserve decency from us, maturity and civility. Let's discuss issues. In some issues, we'll agree. In the banks, why should people so much disagree when they go to the same schools, they go to the same churches, they are married to each other, and they go to the same funerals, and then when it comes to politics, they become enemies. That is not on. We are the same people, and I don't think that there is a particular political party that sees things so different from the other political parties. I think our areas of differences are not so huge because we're the same people. And I will tell you, for example, on this issue we're discussing here, I will show you how we as a people are agreed for many years on the issues of IMF. I will demonstrate here historically and that we must not play politics because it's convenient. We must stay on the side of reason.
So there are some people who say that you're not being genuine. You yourself are playing politics, or perhaps you're just using this sober-mindedness as a pretext for you to wanting to join the UPND.
Well, in the banks, first of all, I have been invited in many governments, not just UPND. President Mwanawasa invited me. I couldn't cross the floor because I'm decent. I'm a decent person. I have a very decent upbringing. My father was a politician. I'm not dropping from anywhere. I'm from a family of stewards. So I have also something to protect within our family lineage.
In what party was your father, just out of interest?
Hello?
In what party was your dad? Yes.
My father was one of the founders of MMD when people were still cowards. My father was already MMD 1990. And he was, by the way, the chairman of Wengo constituency when Baudouin Nkumbula was MP. When the cowards were still hiding. My father was a constituency chairman in the constituency where later I became an MP. You understand? Yeah. So I was invited to be a minister under Mwanawasa. I was invited to be a minister under Rupia Banda and Edgar Lungu and so on a principle. For example, in Parliament, I couldn't cross the floor because crossing the floor is not correct.
Have you been invited in this UPND government?
Yeah, I haven't been invited. If I'm invited for now, I'll not accept because I was not part of the campaign. That will be opportunism.
Wow.
But
that is very interesting because most people.
yes, I want to tell you that Zambian politicians, by and large, have high degrees of recycling. I don't want to mention names. There are people today in the UPND government who are in MMD, who are in PF, and now they're in UPND. At least, thankfully for me, this is my second political party, the new party I did. So I have very less degree of recycling. So I'm more or less brand new. I'm not so used. So the issue is, is the IMF deal correct? I believed in that even when PF was in power. I believed in that even when MMD was in power. Why should I change now because UPND are in power and they have got the deal, which if I was in power, I could have sought it. So what is correct is correct.
Yeah.
And to think that someone wants a job because they support the right thing that is being done, that is not correct. So for me, I can tell you that I stand on the side of reason, on the side of the right things that must be done for my country. And I will tell you, as we discussed, the areas of differences with the UPND in terms of their governance so far. And I will demonstrate with examples and evidence why I think there's a better way of doing some things. On IMF, I agree 100%. I agreed even before. There are even statements in the social media, even in the newspapers that I issued as early as 2019 about the desire for us to have the IMF as the best way out of our debt distress. So I'm not supporting IMF now because there is UPND or they have gotten it. I'm supporting it because it's the right thing to do in the current situation. Someone must tell me what is the best, what other alternative could be there apart from IMF. I'm ready to learn. I can't see any that can beat the IMF route.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Now, viewers, if you've just joined us, you are watching TV Bakwetu, and I'm your host, Linda Banks, and I'm hosting Mr. Hamdudu. Just to point out, we were supposed to have Mr. Tabo Kawana with Mr. Hamdudu. We've been talking in the background and decided, because this is a very busy time for economists, as well as presidential spokespeople, as well as media directors. And we decided to free Mr. Kawana, and he will be appearing, we've decided to share him with our brother Costa Monza. So we're thinking, can I keep both Mr. Hamdudu and Mr. Kawana? And I didn't want to be that greedy. So we've let Mr. Kawana go to our brother Costa Monza, and I'm left with the amazing Mr. Hamdudu, and self-confessed handsome man. There's so many comments about what you just said, which are hilarious. I'm trying to focus.
The dudes in town.
People found that comment very funny. So there's some hilarious comments that are coming on. We have to focus. We've got quite a lot to get through. Now, so obviously, you have alluded to the fact that you've always been of the view that the IMF will be the best solution unless some other politician presented something different. Now, earlier on, I was just playing a video that Costa Monza actually, an interview that Costa Monza did with the president. Then he was the opposition leader, and he alluded to the fact that getting a bailout will be getting into more debt. So what's your view about this? Do you think we are crucifying ourselves with more debt, even though you know it's the best solution?
Yeah, well, Linda, you see, this is not a bailout. No.
Okay. Debt restructuring. What do you want to call it?
It is an IMF-backed reform agenda with a something.
Unpack the something for our viewers, please.
Look, with a something. With a something. With a $1.3 billion dollars. I mean, do you know why I'm saying a something? Our current budget is about $10 billion. In capability, no. The 2022 budget is about $10 billion.
Yeah.
173 billion kwacha at 16 kwacha per dollar is about $10 billion.
Yeah.
So this money is not big money. We can raise it. And IMF
why aren't we raising it, Mr. Hamdudu? If it's not big money, why aren't we raising it through?
What we owe as a country is about 14 billion. The foreign debt is about 14 billion. And therefore, this one is just to support you as we restructure your economy. And the biggest issue here, the biggest bottleneck our country is facing is the huge debt, the foreign debt. Of course, we have a domestic debt, but the foreign debt, which is choking growth, choking government expenditure, choking the private sector by pushing up interest rates, because we are offloading so much forex to finance this debt. What IMF-backed program means, that has been approved by the executive board, is that Zambia now attains some credibility and the confidence, which itself is a dividend. Let me call it the dividend. Through the IMF approval, Zambia now has the credibility. A window has opened for restructuring the 14 billion debt, because at the moment it's unsustainable. Now, with the discussions under the G20 common framework, the old Paris Club, they can now agree to restructure because Zambia now is respected. Do you know why it's respected? The IMF is the global think tank on economic management. If IMF agrees with your economic reforms and you sign up and they give you some money just for you to augment the reform and principally budget balance of payment support and also budget support, so that you can have a stable currency as you reform. So IMF has brought in some stability through this kind of fund. But the biggest cake is still coming. The IMF-backed, the IMF approval opens a window for debt restructuring, opens a window to accessing cheaper debt, opens a window for the various creditors to agree to concessional terms. The biggest elephant in the room is a huge foreign debt, which must be restructured so that it is sustainable. It can be, for example, the period can be lengthened so that the payments, per month or per year are not so onerous, and a country can create a fiscal space to finance critical areas like education, health, and infrastructure. At the moment, the government only has about 10% of its budget to finance everything it's supposed to do. 50% personal emoluments, over 40% foreign debt. Basically, the whole budget is about paying salaries and debt. So one of these must be accelerated, must be reduced to create the headroom to finance service delivery in our country. So this is the beginning of a journey for reforms. Now, with this approval by IMF, credibility and confidence when the economy has been restored, that becomes a window we must take advantage to restructure our debt. Again, the investors now have a positive view of Zambia. We expect more foreign direct investment in the country. Not only foreign investment, the local players here, the Zambians, the Zambia breweries, the mines and other, the trade kings, because Zambia now has a better risk profile, they can access cheaper debt outside. So the private sector will also benefit. In fact, private sector will benefit in a very big way by accessing cheaper money. I am a small businessman. One of the issues in Zambia here that interest rates in this country, even the banks, are torturous. In fact, it's Kalova. We don't have development financing in this country. What business can you do at 25% and above interest? Whether you go to DBZ, you go to all these commercial banks, interest rates for an investment is over 25%. With this IMF package, the private sector can begin to access cheaper money. That's what will grow the economy and create jobs and fight poverty by the many players. So it's not just government, borrowing. And by the way, this 1.3 is really nothing. 1.3 billion.
Yeah.
For me, the benefits that will come through this approval far outweighs the 1.3. The FDI, if government puts in place the right domestic policies that are predictable, that are clear.
Yeah. We're going to discuss those in a little while. What you think the government should put in place to ensure that Zambia benefits from that. Now, I just want to take you a little bit back. Like on Friday, the Daily Mail produced this article where the Republican president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, was reported to be elated at securing this debt restructuring program, of which you don't like calling it that. That's absolutely fine. Now, this has been met with much anxiety within the region, especially the Lower Zambezi, some of our neighboring countries. Now, Mr. Hamdudu, why do you think other countries are frowning upon this program that Zambia has just secured?
I can't understand, because all countries are members of the IMF.
Yeah.
All countries to some level are dealing with the IMF. Others have a technical package. Look at South Africa. They have a package of the IMF, not the monetary one, but the technical one. So there are many services a member country can enter into IMF.
Yeah.
It could be just a technical level.
So why do you think they're frowning upon this?
I don't know, but you see, they are also seeking the same relief. Let me ask a question. Some of the countries that are saying, "Oh, why has Zambia done this?"
Zimbabwe,
the economies are in serious distress. I want to learn from them what other alternative is working for them, so that we can also consider it.
That is violence.
Yes. So. And one time when I was in Parliament, by the way, when I was in Parliament, I chaired the budget committee for 7 years. So I'm quite exposed in the areas of budget. And I did a lot of traveling within Africa and, and outside Africa on the issues of the budget. And one meeting where we met some of the MPs from some countries, I want to mention because I might be president one day. I want to mention the country. I met some of these MPs. I said, don't celebrate your country into destruction. Whatever you do must have evidence, must have the efficacy of evidence. Some of the countries which are angry with Zambia, their economies have collapsed. They have millions of their citizens in foreign countries.
Yeah.
So what other alternative maybe we can look at they have used that is not working? IMF is our own institution. We are member states of the IMF. And you don't force anybody. And IMF was created, for example, to help a country that is in distress.
Yeah.
Because the understanding after the World War, around 1945 and the Great Depression, was that a country collapsing, an economy collapsing, affects the global economy. And there was need for an institution that helps stability of all economies. Instability in one economy is instability everywhere. For example, can you imagine an economy like Russia or the USA or China collapses? It destabilizes the global economy, and therefore IMF is there to maintain stability. And I want to tell you the so-called conditions of IMF. I'm laughing, we must read. I read economics and I taught economics, so I know it like the back of my hand. You see, in the conditions, it says the government must maintain prudence in the management of its resources.
Is this government maintaining prudence?
In the management of the resources.
Mm-hmm.
That is the role of any decent government. Government
we've had Hamdudu, we've had governments that have not been prudent. So it's a basic requirement, but it has not always happened.
Do you know why some countries don't want the IMF? They want to continue with imprudence, destroy their economies, destroy its people. Prudence is a requirement of any government, even constitutionally.
Could it be the reason why they opted for loans, for instance, with countries that do not require that prudence, like China, for instance? Exactly.
They got loans and their countries never recovered. Because there must be a framework that is holistic, that covers all areas of economic management. Now, if you are imprudent, the economy won't recover. The economy won't grow, you won't deal with unemployment, you won't deal with poverty, and your people will live in squalor, like they are doing in those countries. So what IMF has put, and by the way, who is working at IMF? It's our people. There are Zambians who work there. There are Zimbabweans who work there. There are South Africans who work there. So who is IMF? It's us. And they get the post. So let me finish this point. So IMF basically have a normal template of how to run a country. You must be prudent. You must respect human rights. You must use the resources properly. So if you check the so-called conditions here, it's not IMF, it is our framework on how to run government. IMF has agreed that you are doing the right things. This framework, these are practices that have been tested over time.
So you mentioned adhering to human rights. There are those within this country that are claiming that that is not happening. We've had Honorable Bowman Lusambo performed a single protest and went to complain to one of the European organizations to say that his human rights have been infringed upon. So you're saying one of the frameworks that we have to adhere to is human rights. Some people are saying human rights are not happening. You as an opposition leader, do you think you are enjoying human rights? Or everyone is enjoying human rights?
I think we can do better. There are some laws that we must do away with. For example, defamation of the president. Sean Tembo is at Woodlands police station. It's unnecessary.
But is that the president's fault, though? And
no. This is not about a president. It's about a government.
It's about
it's
a law. It's about the law, isn't it? Because this law has been in place way before this administration came into.
So then we still have laws in our statute books that infringe on the freedoms of the people. They must be removed.
So apart from this one, which other law do you think has to be removed?
Yes, I hear now they are reforming the Public Order Act, so it's clear. And then you don't need any permit to meet. I remember Malanji, the former MP for Kwacha, he was harassed just before he lost the seat while he's visiting the constituents. So we also have some overzealous policemen. I think the police also need to be retrained. They play too much kachawa to any new government.
I saw one video that has been trending where a police officer did not tell the person what they were being arrested for. So retraining does sound like something that might be a good thing, perhaps. So moving on now, you were talking about how brilliant this institution is in terms of helping us kind of get out of this financial pickle. But now, yes, they've given Zambia 1.3 billion, but if you have a look at the amount of money that the IMF has given to Ukraine, for instance, just to buy arms for war, and Zambia needs money to alleviate poverty. And yet you're saying we're equal members, we're standing on equal footing. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we have been given a smaller amount of money compared to Ukraine, for instance?
First of all, we did not need a lot of money because we do not have the headroom to acquire more debt.
But for us to balance the books, we need at least $20 billion. You are the expert.
What we need to do is the current debt need to be restructured so that if the debt, for example, on average the life of the debt was 10 years, if it is lengthened to 30 years, the debt becomes sustainable, because then the payments becomes less, and then we have enough fiscal space to handle our affairs. And therefore, even if IMF wanted to give us 10 billion, it would be wrong to get it. The IMF opens the window to restructure the debt that is there, so that we have the fiscal space for government to carry out its mandate. By the way, the Zambia Revenue Authority, and thanks for the reforms of the MMD, part of the IMF agreement those days, in 1994, under Ronald Penza, may he so rest in peace, when Zambia Revenue Authority was set up as a semi-autonomous revenue collecting agency or tax administration agency. If you check the numbers, Zambia moved from a totally donor-dependent country in terms of budget. We had reached a point, when I was a chairman of the budget, we had reached a point where Zambia could finance its budget from domestic resource mobilization. Had we not gone into debt, by now we could have been financing our budget from domestic resource mobilization, thanks for the reforms supported by IMF, that we moved the tax administration from the inland income tax department in the Ministry of Finance to a semi-autonomous institution with capacity.
Yeah. How did we get into this debt, and under which administration do you think we accrued the largest amount of debt?
It's unfortunate. I don't know whether it's in our DNA. Remember, when MMD came into office, it was at the backdrop of a $7 billion debt. And therefore, we had to go to IMF to help restructure our debt, and eventually to write off the debt through the same common framework in Paris.
Why do we always rush with the begging ball? Is there something in the structural makeup of our economy?
As a country, we've been careless. There was no need to go into debt. After our debt was written off in 2005, by the time MMD left, our debt was basically around $1 billion. Within 10 years, our debt went to $14 billion. So there was imprudence in the management of our resources.
How can we avoid this from happening again?
The best is to put laws that does not allow government to cross a particular threshold in borrowing. And when I was in the parliament, we were pushing for that. And I think some progress has been made now that, all loans must be subjected to parliamentary approval. And some of them really must require a 2/3 majority. Because even parliament can be abused, because any ruling party has the numbers. And I remember during the last regime, where the debt ceiling was always changed in the parliament so that they can borrow more, because they had the numbers. And therefore, a ruling party always is a danger to a country, because they always have the numbers.
Yeah,
and
this is why it's really important to have a good opposition party,
not only
so
that
the government just doesn't get whatever policies they come.
Beyond that, Linda, I think even the requirement for parliament to approve must be like changing the constitution, must require 2/3, because 2/3 is very difficult. But the current laws, the requirement for changing the borrowing limit was basically a simple majority, which is very easy for a ruling party to get. So we need to tighten legislation on borrowing by Parliament, not just having a law that requires the minister to ask for approval from Parliament, but the voting threshold must be raised to 2/3 so that it's a national consensus to borrow. So when you have government that has appetite to borrow willy-nilly, the law will become a deterrent.
Indeed. Now, that is a very good point, actually. So to tighten to have restrictions on, how to borrow and all that sort of stuff. Now, Mr. Hamdudu, the package from the IMF does not outline the outcome of the program with the Zambian creditors, who in essence, the country is seeking relief from due to the high and unsustainable debt. Why do you think that could be?
Well, the approval of this IMF package for Zambia, what I call back reforms, is that Zambia has undergone what we call surveillance. You know, the Article 4 of the IMF, which is basically a consultative process. IMF has been in this country to have conversations with government, with Parliament, with civil society. In some of these discussions, I was there to get the full information about the reforms. So the reforms outlined by government were satisfactory for them to approve. And therefore, it becomes easy when they go to the G20 Common Framework on debt restructuring, because we have passed the first test through this. Okay? Good governance, constitutional reforms, all the things that, if they are done, will bring about progress for our country, will bring about better management for our country, will reduce the appetite or risk to go into debt. Therefore, when these people start their discussions where China and France are chairing the G20 Common Framework for Zambia, the South Africa, it becomes very easy to restructure, because you are dealing with now a client whose credibility has improved. Just like if you're a customer in the bank. When you are a good customer to the bank and you have got a better rating, they'll give you a lower interest rate than a risk customer. And therefore, the degree of risk on Zambia, because of the reforms that has been agreed with IMF, which have been approved, it is easy for the creditors to agree, because now they are dealing with a country that has attained credibility. They can agree, for example, maybe to cancel some interests that is agreed on the loans. They might agree to lengthen the period of repayments, even to do some so-called haircuts, cancel some part of the loan, because now they have confidence in this customer in this country. And they are sure that their money now is safe, and they will get it. So I can tell you now, this window paid by IMF approval will fasten debt restructuring, which will now release resources to improve the government's mandate, to provide services to our people, which is the core mandate of government. Government requires resources to run its affairs, and this process releases resources for government to do just that. So debt will be sustainable, then there will be available resources for government to carry out its mandate, meaning we are basically coming back to normality. Now, here's the most important thing. With this now, the exchange rate is strengthening. With this now, inflation rate is coming down. With this now, interest rates will start coming down. Now, that has a very good impact on the private sector. So, the sum total of these reforms is that you will have an economy that is rejuvenated. You have an economy that will begin to grow, because it has now stabilized. The next thing now is growth. You know, an economy is like a human body. If I am sick and I'm taking Fairview, Fairview, the first thing they want to check is, how is the temperature? Yeah, that could be the inflation. How is the BP? That could be the exchange rate. How is the situation? So what they must deal with those before they do an operation on me. So what is happening now is stabilization. You have seen the exchange rate, it has stabilized.
Yeah.
Inflation is coming down. Interest rates, banks are announcing that they are coming down. That gives a breather to the private sector to rebound. You know, in our liberalized economy, it is the private sector that holds the genius for job creation. It is the private sector that holds the genius for growth, for poverty reduction, because they create more jobs than even the so-called public beggars. The real jobs will come from the private sector. So you need an environment that makes the private sector thrive. So this process brings the environment. Come down. Now trade kings will easily buy their detergents, the agents to make the things they make. They will order their machinery cheaper. Zambia will order their machinery cheaper. Zambia will buy their machinery cheaper to expand their operations and create more jobs and grow the economy. So this is a bigger story. IMF is a window to bigger things to come. But here's the issue. Government must craft a domestic economic recovery program that puts up pillars in all sectors to rebound.
Yeah.
For example, what is government doing in agriculture to make agriculture thrive? You need to open the borders so that farmers can fetch better prices in Congo, in Angola, and elsewhere. Farmers need a financing institution. IMF is saying you must only maintain subsidies which are absolutely necessary. I can tell you, even if FISI requires a review because it has not brought the growth we needed. It's high time, perhaps, we bring back a better managed Lima Bank so that you Linda banks can come here, borrow money and run a proper farming enterprise. And then the money is revolving. So we need to put our money
back into circulation. Thank you so much. Now, the former finance minister, Mr. Mangande, is quoted to have said something quite interesting on one of the Radio Phoenix programs. I think it was yesterday. He has challenged government to disclose the economic reforms that they've agreed upon with the International Monetary Fund, and basically how citizens will benefit from this. Do you think the government is under any obligation to divulge such information?
Yeah, one of the issues within the reform agenda is transparency.
Yeah.
And by the way, the conditions are already there on the internet. I have them here on my phone.
Okay. Hold that thought, Mr. Hamdudu. Just hold that thought. Viewers, if you're just joining us, thank you so much. You're listening to and watching TV Bakwetu. I just realized that there's some people who listen to the program on podcast. Technology has really advanced. Now, I'm pleased to tell you, I don't know what has happened. I think the director, Mr. Tabu Kawana, perhaps just did not want to miss out on this show. So he has availed himself. Now, we're just going to let him in. Mr. Kawana, welcome to the program. Pray tell, what brings you here? We're excited to have you.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here. And good evening to everyone. And good evening.
Your sound is very low.
How is it now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, good evening to everyone. Thank you very much for having me, and good evening to Comrade Hamdudu.
Good evening, Comrade Kawana. How are you?
Very well, thank you, sir. And how are you?
Good to see you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm late. I was engaged elsewhere, and we thought maybe we could chip in, even if it's the last 2 minutes.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. We're so pleased. But I would suggest you sort out the sound because it's very low. I don't know why. We do want to be able to hear you. And you just came at the perfect time. But I'll let Mr. Hamdudu respond to that question. And I'll pose the same, because obviously you're from government. I'll pose the same question to you. Mr. Hamdudu, if you can carry on your line of thought. So, I was talking about the former finance minister who is
Here's the issue. Look, I have read through at least a summary of some of the conditions. By the way, the conditions are not imposed by IMF. It is a creation of a framework by our own country to IMF. And IMF ticked the boxes and says, okay, this is correct. If these things are done, the economy is on the way to recovery. So IMF does not impose conditions. You go to IMF and tell them what you want to do. That's why some countries are failing to get the package, because what they submit does not constitute a package that can bring about recovery for their economies. Because IMF cannot associate themselves with failure, because it's a think tank. And by the way, even before that, I thought I forgot to say something in the banks.
Yeah, and just on that point that you've just raised, that IMF does not associate itself with failures, but these are member countries. They're supposed to be they're not supposed to be treated like slaves, or, and for lack of better term, they are members just like America is a member. So they entitled, so to speak, to receive help. It's a bit like a village banking. I like to look at IMF like a village bank. So you have got the right to take out whatever you have kind of subscribed to, is it not?
I don't think IMF, if they begin to support responsibility, I don't think it will survive. It will collapse, just like a bank. If you're going to lend money to people who are not serious, that bank collapses. We had many banks that collapsed here because they had a very poor, customer profile. So, but for this one, it's our bank. You remember during the COVID, IMF gave free money to countries to help them pull through the effects of COVID. Zambia received 1.3 billion SDR.
And was it spent to that effect? Was it spent on the right things, so to speak?
One of the functions of SDR basically is to augment your reserves so that you don't run out of forex to support your currency. Because if a currency collapses, the economy collapses. Yeah. And Zambia received 1.3, by the way, from IMF because of COVID. So IMF is concerned about global stability of the economies. Yeah. And this was basically without application. It is this one. So already, within a period of 1 year, Zambia has received 2.6 billion from IMF. This 1.3 now through the reform agenda. The first one to help countries cope with the effects of COVID. So IMF has been there for countries. But I must say this, Linda Banks, many countries that have worked with IMF and have failed to recover their economies and to grow their economies, I must tell you that the failure is due to the incompetence of those governments. It's not IMF.
It's a good place to, thank you so much, Mr. Hamdudu. It's a good place to bring in Director Kawana. Do you think your government is competent enough to see this work?
Is my mic better now? Are you able to hear me?
It's in and out. My guess is if you could position it, yeah.
Okay, is it better if I do this?
That's much better, yes. So is your government competent enough to use this?
Our government is more than competent. As you know, the previous government spent 5 years chasing after this IMF deal. And we closed it at staff level agreement within 3 months. And within a year, we have landed the deal home, meaning that the credibility of our government, the confidence that the international community has in our president and his cabinet is immense. And that is why today we are where we are, because we're a credible government.
How did you become this credible in the short space of time? The other day, I had the economist, Mr. Mtwala, on the program, and obviously he's not from government, but I asked him the same question. What do you think this Hichilema Lumango administration has done that ECL's administration did not do?
Well, I don't think it's basically what we have done. It is what the people of Zambia did. The people of Zambia voted in a competent government. They voted in a competent president. They voted in a president that was known for party after party to a president that knows work, smart work, and hard work only. And today we are where we are. And just on a lighter note, Linda, I just want to say to Comrade Hamdudu, you know these Tongas, you can say Linda, don't need to say Linda Banks all the time, Linda Banks, Linda Banks. Tonga, relax. Just say Linda.
Mr. Kawana, you missed out. He was telling the viewers about his physical appearance. That's perhaps that's why he's very popular, and that's correct.
Well, I think Triple H is popular because he is a very how would I put it? He's a very objective man. He's an opposition leader in our country, but he sticks to issues. He's an opposition leader worthy to listen to. Even us that are in government, when he speaks, we pay attention because he goes for the meat. He goes for issues. He's not petty. He's not personal. So when he talks, you know that the interest is about Zambia and not anything else. So he's a worthy opponent, and he's someone that we take very, very seriously. So for him, when we see him, we know that whatever he's discussing is serious and is truthful and is factual.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you're just a little bit, those are high accolades and good compliments, Mr. Hamdudu. First of all, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to that, first of all, before.
No, Comrade Kawana, I'm truly humbled, sir. I'm truly humbled. I'll even do much better because of those accolades. you know, Linda, we are developing one country. For me, politics is a ministry. It's ministry. I have accepted Christianity, and when I do politics, I want to do it with what I have accepted. So I don't want to, to pretend. I don't want to behave like because Mr. Kawana is UPN is my enemy. No, he's my brother.
Yeah.
I don't want to behave like because the first member is socialist is an enemy. He's my brother. Yeah. We are brothers, and therefore for me, I cut across. And the issue is basically is a country, and for me, I will do as much as I can from a very factual point of view. If I am wrong, it is the extent of my facts, but I do it with so much sincerity.
That is wonderful to hear. I wish we could have many politicians who could claim that. Now, Mr. Kawana, the package from the IMF does not outline the outcome of the program with the Zambia's creditors, who, in essence, as I was saying to Mr. Hamdudu, the country is seeking relief from due to the high and unsustainable debt. Now, why do you think that is so?
Well, because the program itself is the bridge. This is just but the beginning. The program itself is the bridge for us now to engage with our creditors. Because remember, the condition was that we must be able to agree with our creditors. And our creditors said, we will only agree with you when we know that you're on the IMF program. Then we know you're credible enough. Then we can agree whether we take some haircuts on our money or we elongate the repayment period and so on. But for us to even engage with you, being a country that is known for being the first country to default, you must have some credibility to your name. And for you to have that credibility, you must be on the IMF program. And now we are on the IMF program, signifying the beginning of the talks. So now the talks move. And now the game moves from IMF getting onto the program to discussing with our creditors. And luckily, among the creditors committee, it's still being chaired by China, co-chaired by China and France, and deputized by South Africa. And you know that we are a member of the IMF. We are the IMF. We've been a member since 1965, and we are number 3 in Africa. Therefore, we sit at the high table. We are among the people that determine conditions around the IMF packages and so on. So we are now moving to a stage where we are now beginning to engage with our creditors. But maybe because I joined the program late, I don't know what you looked at, but maybe just to run quickly through to demystify, because what I'm hearing from the people is that what are the conditions? You have hidden the conditions. So I want to say, number one, first quickly, that the the Ministry of Finance will, within this week, publish the entirety of the deal on the Ministry of Finance website, so that people can read for themselves every finer detail. But if you don't mind, I can break it down for you in that this government has agreed with the IMF on 12 conditions. 12 conditions. But I must state from the word go that these conditions are the ones that we set ourselves and took to the IMF. The IMF of 1970 would come to you and give you a panacea, tell you this is what you need to do. Yes, yes. But the IMF of today says you are in trouble, tell us how you get out of it. So you must present to them, a bankable project. You must be able to present to them what are the reforms you intend to undertake in order for you to get out of trouble. And we presented 12 conditions, which the IMF nodded, and today we have the program in the back. Number one, we agreed that there will be no more borrowing of government from the central bank. Number two, we agreed that there will be no more borrowing of non-concessional loans. So we shall not go to the market to borrow money. We shall always endeavor to get money that is cheap money, which is concessional money. We'll get money from institutions like the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank, the European Fund, and so on. Number three, we needed to stop the wasteful expenditure so that we stop the bleeding, because there's a lot of wasteful expenditure and it is bleeding. So watch out from, just like the contract which just expired here for the 130 kwacha motorbikes. You see, as we re-advertise, you will not hear of such kind of stories. No more wasteful expenditure. Number four, we need to set a minimum of what should be our foreign reserves in terms of what we need to have in our Bank of Zambia as foreign reserves. We are setting a minimum where we know that we cannot go beyond this. Number five, no more accumulation of debt arrears, meaning we are only going to spend what we have. We will not spend beyond our means. Number six, setting minimum amount in the budget on social sector spending, meaning we know that what we need to spend as a minimum on free education, on social cash transfer, etc., is X amount. We cannot spend below that kind of amount, because at the end of the day, this program is about the people of Zambia, and it must benefit the people of Zambia. Number seven, setting minimum amount in budget on clearing arrears and tax refunds. Remember that we have inherited a lot of arrears from the previous regime that kept contracting people to do roads, to do infrastructure, to bring in fuel, but not paying them. And we have found this huge debt. And we need to set aside amount every year in the budget to ensure that we tackle these arrears, including the VAT refunds that ZRI is owing many companies. Number eight, setting minimum amount setting a minimum amount in terms of the targeting the revenue to be collected within our budget, locally collected resources. Number nine, limit disbursement of contractual but undisbursed, limit disbursement of contractual but undisbursed external debt to set an amount every year to reduce the accumulation. So every year, we ensure that we reduce accumulation of undisbursed loans, which we contracted, but we have not yet utilized. Improving, that's number 10 now, improving the design and implementation of subsidy program in agriculture. For example, FISIP. And a lot of people have been driving this myth, especially those colleagues from that family, which is not mentioned, but I'm sure they have very good green grass around their yard. That family has been spreading lies that FISIP is going to be done away with, that there will be no more subsidy in agriculture. But Linda, they lie. In fact, we are even going to minimum increase. We are going to increase in terms of FISIP. What we have done is to implement changes in the FISIP program so that we don't have a situation where we've had in the past where fertilizer meant for the poor farmers finds itself on the market through cooperatives, where you have a cooperative of 100 people, you give the chairman inputs for 100 people, he only distributes to 40 people. For the 60, it is on the market being sold. Now what we are saying is that if you are 100 in the cooperative, all you hundreds must come and collect the inputs on your own. Nobody is going to collect inputs on behalf of anybody. So we are continuing with fertilizer, we are continuing with FISIP. The subsidies in agriculture will continue. Just flip my page.
Okay.
Number 11.
Number 11?
Yeah, yes. Number 11, second last, is restructuring and removing subsidy in petroleum subsector. You know that we have removed all subsidies in the petroleum subsector. What we have is that government is not pumping in any money in the subsector in terms of petroleum, but there were those subsidies, or there were those taxes which were removed by the PF regime, which we have maintained. So it means that somehow we still have, a subsidy there because government is not collecting any money there. But even that, we are going to get to a point where we have to do away with it, and we are still working around the mechanisms to see how that will cushion in as far as the price of fuel is concerned for our people. And 12, but not the least, enhance monitoring and evaluation for quarterly basis to check how the reform programs are going. Those are the conditions under which we've gotten this facility. Not that there are any conditions to say you unbundle ZESCO. There is no mention of ZESCO in the IMF deal. Totally. No mention of ZESCO. There is no mention of removing subsidies on fertilizer. Totally nothing. So all those conditions that we may have gone through in the 90s are not appearing now. What we have now are what, if I can quote my Minister of Finance, these are sweet conditionalities.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to give you, Mr. Hamdudu, an opportunity to comment on what Mr. Kawana has said. But Mr. Kawana, I want to pick you up on, that is a very elaborate explanation of the conditions that you have set for yourselves. And I'm sure that has demystified and clarified several things that have been flying around on social media. But I want to pick you up on the fertilizer, because this has been a very thorny issue. The contracts and the tender setting and all that. So it's been quite messy. People are not happy, particularly about one company that I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. I just want you to just talk around that subject. What's the process like for tenders? Do you give family members or other ministers' spouses, as it's been alleged? What is going on?
No, what is going on is that there are new players in the fertilizer subsector industry. There has been players in that industry for a very long time that monopolized the whole thing. And now that this time around they have not been selected, they are the ones now propagating these lies and propaganda to say, no, the whole thing was messy. They have given Jangulu, is now like the head boy and so on. Mr. Jangulu runs Alpha Commodities, and Mr. Jangulu is spouse to my Minister of Information. Mr. Jangulu's company has been dealing with government to bring in fertilizer, and it is among the 6 companies which was contracted by the PF government in the last season to bring in fertilizer. But you can imagine that of all the business, they were given 10%. 90% went to other companies which are of Zambians of different origins, but they were given only 10%. And within that 10% they were given, they performed excellently, and therefore they have a good record. And those who got big chunks, 40%, whatever percentages, failed to deliver. And yet these are the companies that were given the money, upfront payment. Somebody collecting $130 million to bring in fertilizer, and they don't bring in a kobo. What audacity! And you expect that when we come in, we shall retain such companies. So it is people now who feel that they were left out who are spreading these lies. But bottom line remains, There are new players who have been given contracts to bring in fertilizer, and they're bringing it at a cheaper rate, and they're bringing it to the Zambian people. The Zambian people will benefit because it is being brought in a bit cheaper than what was being brought by the monopolized. People have to get used. People have to get used. It's a new players. Baby, there's a new sheriff in town. So there's nothing like people. There's a new sheriff in town. So there's nothing like people thinking, oh, Jaira, kapaseo, Kwasila, it's other people now.
Okay, there's a new sheriff in town, but Mr. Kawana, in all seriousness, you have your minister, the Minister of Information, and the husband is the one who gets the contracts. And if we're being honest, the whole thing was quite messy previously. Did Madam Chushi's husband's company even deliver previously or not? Because it's on record that
I have just mentioned here, Linda, that my minister's husband is a director in a company called Alpha Commodities.
Does that sound right to you? Your
no, let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. My minister's husband is a director in a company called Alpha Commodities.
Yes.
Alpha Commodities is among the 6 companies that was contracted by the previous regime.
Yes.
To deliver, and they were given to deliver 10% of the business. And they delivered without collecting upfront payment, and they delivered every last kobo. Even when those that collected $130 million did not deliver, and there was need for fertilizer to be brought in, Alpha was again asked to bring in some, and again they delivered. So in terms of their delivery, it is 100%.
Let me pause your thoughts, Mr. Kawana, just on that aspect. One of the many reasons why the PF were voted out is because they gave businesses to each other. And this president, His Excellency, President Hakainde Hichilema, was very categorical in telling the Zambian people that when we come into power, we're going to do, yes, there's a new sheriff in town, and my golly gosh, it's a wonderful thing. He promised faithfully that it won't be business as usual. Things were going to be different. But if you tell an ordinary Zambian person who's trying to bid for these contracts, and you've got the husband of the Minister of Information and gets that contract, don't you think it doesn't sit quite right? Are you quite happy with that?
It would not sit quite right if it were the first time they're doing it. It would not sit quite right if they're not qualified to do it. It would not sit quite right if they were given an opportunity and they failed to deliver to do it. But this is a company that has been in existence for many years. It was even given business by the previous regime, despite whatever innuendos one could want to imagine. And they are Zambians. Remember that, are we going to discriminate people because their husband is one of the directors in the company, and therefore we can't give them business because the wife is a minister? Guys, come on. This company deals in fertilizer. This company has dealt with the government. This company has 100% record in terms of delivery. Why would we discriminate against it because the wife to one of the directors, not the sole director, not the only director, one of the directors in the companies, the wife is a minister?
Okay.
No,
Mr. Hamdudu, is this discrimination, or do you think, does it sit right with you? Take a pick from the 12 points that Mr. Kawana alluded to, as well as the fertilizer issue.
First of all, that framework that Mr. Kawana has outlined is a framework of good economic management. And if you follow that, you recover your economy. But coming to accessing the IMF package is dependent on putting, like he says, a bankable, a convincing reform agenda. So the IMF has bought in the reform agenda and endorsed it. and give it and spiced it with something. Okay, gave in some money. Say, okay, you are now doing the right things. Here is the money for you to stabilize. As the avenues are opening for better possibilities. But let me say this: I'm happy that Comrade Kawana has discussed the issues of fertilizer. I'm very disappointed over time, and I was in Parliament, as I told you, for 10 years. We discussed the issue of the mode of delivering FISIP, Farmer Input Support Program, in Parliament. We sent, there were select committees or committees on agriculture that went to do some benchmarking in Malawi and other countries. We came to a conclusion, Linda, that the only way we can make FISIP efficient and non-wasteful is to deliver it through the e-voucher system. And we were almost reaching the level of e-voucher. The e-voucher had so many advantages where farmers are given money through, the blessing of technology now. It is easy now to give any farmer through, mobile money and so on. Farmers get their money and they go and buy their inputs. That brought a lot of competitions amongst the suppliers, so that government is not involved in selecting who brings fertilizer. The many suppliers now in the market were there to sell to the farmers who had money in their hands. That had promoted what we call diversification of the economy. A farmer might decide, okay, for me, I want to do a chicken project. I want to buy chemicals for my cattle. I want to do AB. So there was diversification. We have now relapsed as a country and gone back to this so-called fertilizer, commodity, which is very expensive. One of the reasons why our budget is bleeding, our fiscus is bleeding, is a FISIP. The manner in which it is delivered. In many budget years, you will find that the budget for FISIP is 1 billion. And then because agriculture is a bit sensitive, when the farmers start complaining, government begins to ask for more supplementary budgets. And by the end of the year, the budget was 1 billion and they spent, for example, 9 billion. But under the e-voucher system, which Italy had no corruption, because the private sector, the agro dealers, were now competing to make commodities available across the country. And that was actually empowering a lot of agro dealers, whether it's in Chavuma or Lundazi or in Kaputa or in Chango. The agro dealers were stocking and the farmers were buying from that. That was agreed in Parliament. But I don't know what is so attractive to go back to the commodities. It's a difficult thing. So I'm very disappointed with the new government that they have continued with this mode of delivering FISIP. The e-voucher approach was the best, and it was cost effective, by the way, Linda, because one, there is no transportation. The transportation. So yes, I want to
we are restructuring. Remember that our cornerstone in the agriculture FISIP program is that first we are continuing with FISIP, but we are restructuring. And I mentioned one of the things that we have done is to ensure that the farmers themselves get the commodities and no one is getting on their behalf. There are many measures that we are putting in place, and watch the space. And like I mentioned earlier, when Triple H is speaking, we listen. So we are listening.
and by the way, I'm happy that you are doing something, but I think the speed at which you are doing the reforms domestically is a bit slow.
And also, Mr. Hamdudu, farming season is upon us. If something is being done, which means that this farming season, farmers are going to be at a loss as to what they should
do. This farming season, we are continuing. We didn't want a disruption. We are continuing. The farmers will receive, only that this time around they will receive for themselves, but we'll continue with the system. If there will be changes to the system, it will be in the next farming season, because there's no time to make changes now.
Mr. Hamdudu.
I hear you, Comrade Kawana, but I think you're a bit slow in the reforms, because I mean, you've been in government for 1 year, and of course, even before we went into government, you should have been prepared on an economic plan on how you're going to do reforms very quickly. And if you continue with this kind of FISIP delivery, the fiscus will continue to bleed. There are enough reports at the Ministry of Finance that FISIP, in the manner it is being delivered, is quite costly, and it's one of the reasons why the country is in these fiscal problems. So
Indeed,
you need to reform that. Yes. So that you are going the second year with the same commodity base, which is very expensive because there's no competition among the agro dealers. This does not really serve the farmer, does not serve the government, does not serve the country. There is a better way of delivering FISIP. In any case. And that's why I'm told you that even countries that are backed by IMF, some of them fail because of the weak domestic economic recovery program. I can tell you that, in fact, there are enough reports that FISIP must begin to reduce, that you bring a better financing mechanism for farmers, where farmers get loans and pay back. All the farmers want are loans that are concessions, loans that have got the right terms for agriculture, good grace period, lower interest rates. Then you can have a real agriculture. FISIP in the past 20 years has not helped agriculture grow in this country, meaning agriculture has remained in primary school. There must be a graduation into secondary, into university. So agriculture has remained in primary because we are using a tool which was meant only for food sufficiency, not for agricultural growth. And therefore, I challenge our colleagues in government that we need better reforms that will bring true agricultural transformation and diversification of this sector.
And better reforms are coming.
Yeah, but
better reforms are coming.
You are losing 2 years, and you have losing 2 years. So you better speed up.
We hear you. But like I said, the reforms are coming, and in this coming year, there will be reforms. For now, you can bear with us to imagine that within 1 year, we had to settle into government. Within 1 year, we had to find our feet. Within 1 year, we had to get where we are with the IMF. Within 1 year, we had to employ over 40,000 civil servants. And within 1 year, we have those civil servants employed and immediately put on payroll. So we had quite a bit on our plate, and we've done what we could. And of course, not everything is correct, but we've done what we could, and we are where we are today, and we continue. Reforms continue. Remember that one of the pillars on the conditions that I read there is that one of them is to stop the bleeding. And if FISIP is proving to be one of the programs where the bleeding is being occasioned, it will be dealt with.
And by the way, thank you very much. Can I just chip in?
Okay, go for it.
There are 3 areas of bleeding, apart from the excessive borrowing in the past 10 years. 3 areas of bleeding. And I was the chairman of the budget in Parliament. FISIP, fuel, FRA. You need quick reforms in these areas. Otherwise, one, you are not growing agriculture, and then you are creating a very huge burden on the treasury. There are better methods that can be used to quicken in agricultural transformation. Zambians have been talking about the commodities exchange, that why don't government partner with the private sector to create agricultural marketing highway where farmers can deposit their crop and get a receipt, and that institution can export it to Congo, to South Sudan, and they receive their money. Now, right now, I can tell you that the government is still struggling to buy maize in the rural areas. I'm in touch with the rural areas, and people have taken their maize. It takes time. Government sometimes have fiscal pressures. Yet there is a market. Marketing of agricultural produce where there is demand is self-financing. There's a market there, good price in Congo, in Angola, in other places, and so on. And if we have a commercial, highway, a commercial enterprise, co-owned by government and the private sector, where farmers can deposit like a bank there, and then you get your receipt, which you can actually discount if you want. We will speed up agricultural transformation at a faster rate and grow. This country is a joke. Can you imagine maize production is still at 3 million metric tons per year, 2.6. This is a joke. This country can, within 2-3 years, with the right reforms in agriculture that are informed by evidence, we can increase production of in agriculture, even in maize, which is the easiest crop to grow and export, to over 10 million metric tons, basically in 2 years. There's nothing happening in our rural areas because of the weak.
What would you put in place to ensure, Mr. Hamdudu, what would you put in place to ensure that happens? Because obviously agriculture is a big industry that could perhaps help this economy jump started. What 3 things would you put into place if you were in government?
If we're in government, from where we start, and I want to tell you that is while we agree with IMF as the best route to come out of this, we will hold our friends in government to account on the many different policies. That's our job as opposition. Very objective, issue-based with evidence. There are about 5 pillars that we can quickly put in place to reform agriculture. Number 1, open the borders, allow exports.
Which we have done.
Okay? You see, to export maize, you need the permits. Remove the permits. Leave the farmer to export. It's not a job of a farmer.
It cannot be willy-nilly, sir. You do that, you run a risk of bringing down your own food security. You need to control it. But the borders are open.
Why don't you use national saves to grow a buffer stock for food security and let the farmers get the right price? Government has been, even the previous government, they have been suppressing the price of maize. For example, in Malawi, the other year, a bag of 50 kg of maize was costing 200. In Zambia, they were forcing farmers to sell at 120. You are impoverishing farmers when across stone throw, they can make a fortune in Congo. So get a better way of producing food for food security. Okay? Do not use farmers to feed consumers and kill the agriculture and perpetuate poverty in the rural areas. Okay, that's number 1. Open the borders. Number 2, get a better financing for agriculture. You cannot grow agriculture. FISIP was a stopgap measure, which was meant just for food sufficiency, not for growth. So we need a better run Lima Bank, where Mr. Kawana can come and get a loan and go to Kalumwangi in 1 fiscal year and make 3 million. It is possible. You go in soybeans, you go in sunflower. These things we do, but there is no financing. 3, extension services. 4, a marketing highway, the commodities exchange that will link the farmer to the market. When you drive to Eastern Province or Northern, you find women on the road selling sweet potatoes and groundnuts. Yet elsewhere there's a market. So you need a linkage between the market and the producers. The commodities exchange, which has been discussed for many years, can unlock that.
Okay.
So there are pillars, and the final one, which is more important, the final one. Land titling. This country, literally over almost 90% is untitled. You cannot grow agriculture if you are using informal asset called land. So Rwanda has basically, those mountains have been registered. Land is titled. When you title land for our villagers, they become commercial farm. They become commercial immediately because now their main asset has got the force of law. Their main asset now has become a real asset because it has a paper. Now you go to the villages, you just point 1 tree, this is my land from that tree to that tree. I mean, 60 years after independence, our land, we must use trees to know where it ends. So land titling becomes the main driver to transformation. Then financing comes in. Then conservation comes in. Crop rotation, because now you respect your land. Not you make your land unproductive, then you go to Mkonchi. You make land productive, then you go to until you reach the border of Congo, they stop you. Don't go to Congo now. This is Congo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hamdudu. Excellent points there. Now, Mr. Kawana, is it feasible to implement the 4? Because one of them, you said we've already done that. We've opened the borders. But the other 4 pillars, Is it feasible to implement this? And if so, in what period, space of time?
It is feasible. I would not be in a position right now to say in what time, but it is feasible. And remember that as we are implementing the restructuring around agriculture, we are engaging various stakeholders that I'm sure Triple H will be one of those to be engaged, so that we arrive at a place where we have got feedback or input from most stakeholders, our people, to design what it is they want their government to do for them in order for them to make profits in as far as farming is concerned. But one of the things the president spoke about from the early days of his being in office was that the borders needed to be opened and stop Zambians from being smugglers, but to being business people and being commercial farmers. And this is what we have done now. It is very easy for you to get a permit to export, only that what we are saying is don't export the maize, try and export the mini meal. And even when you do export the maize, the permit has to be given because we need to know how much maize is going out of the country and how much we have in the country, because food security is our main concern as a government. But the pillars that Triple H is referring to really are good pillars, and as government is engaging stakeholders, I am sure they will be taken on board.
Thank you very much. Triple H, there's a question for you. What is FSP stand for? Some of our viewers would like an elaborate answer, please.
The Farmer Input Support Program. Is that it?
Okay.
The Farmer Input Support Program.
FISP, Farmer Input Support Program.
There's an I. So that is Muyunda Po. I hope that is clear. And let me have just people are kind of are wanting to chip in. They're really loving this discourse. And we have, is it Felix? What Mr. Hamdudu is saying is making a lot of sense. And this is an interesting thing about a very sober and objective conversation. There's a split. Everyone thinks you're all making sense. And there's no argument about it all. You may not agree with one thing that government is doing, but you're making an objective solution. So those 5 pillars sounds like a very productive
one thing we may all agree is that this Tonga man is intelligent.
No, but you know, Linda, one thing I like about Comrade Kawana, you know, he has learned from the school of life. You take him to economics, take him to infrastructure, politics, he fits in. This man is number 5 in the team. He plays all positions. So I'm wondering what you got from Bulosi. You might be, we need to investigate you. You just fit in, and you are shocking me, you know, that you just fit in all areas. So just keep it up.
Thank you very much.
Indeed. Mr. Kwana came in obviously late, and if you've just joined us, thank you so much. Keep sharing the broadcast. I can see lots of people joining in, which is fantastic. We talked about, Mr. Kwana, this is for you. Mr. Hamdudu and I discussed the former finance minister, Mr. Mangende, who was talking about how transparency has not been seen in how you've dealt with this IMF deal, and basically how he wanted to find out how ordinary citizens will benefit from this IMF deal. Is the government under any obligation? Now I want you to tell us if the government is under any obligation to divulge such information. And another question that he had raised about this deal is whether you do outline the outcome of the program with the Zambian creditors.
Yeah, I think we have talked about the creditors. We have said that for the local creditors in every budget for the next 5 years, we'll ensure that there's money to liquidate the local debt and get rid of the arrears. We have also stated the conditions upon which we have entered this agreement. Yeah. Comrade Magande may not necessarily be very truthful. I say so because firstly, he's our former finance minister and has access to our current finance minister. He's also a former employee of the IMF and has information to what is going on within the IMF and so on. And I also know that he's on record of having said that the country could procure his services to help the country to secure a deal with the IMF. And maybe that we didn't procure his services. Maybe that could be a bad feeling on his part. I don't know. But I think all the questions that he raises, the concerns he has, have already been addressed. In terms of the conditionalities, they've been addressed. The good part is that the team, the economic team that we have of the current finance minister, the current Bank of Zambia governor, the current secretary to Treasury, and so on, all these are experienced men, and these are people that have historically dealt with the IMF, and that is why even when they went to discuss with the IMF, they were home.
So we're just receiving some information that is coming in saying the IMF deal conditions are going to be published on the Ministry of Finance website by Thursday for all to read. Do you think this is as a result of pressure that has been in the press, and then the Ministry of Finance have had no choice but now to plan to publish this by Thursday?
No, this government does not work under pressure. These conditions are being published in the spirit of transparency. Linda, when I just joined your broadcast, the first thing I said was that they will be published on the Ministry of Finance website. So I'm even surprised they're saying we're just getting news now. And I'm thinking,
because people are just sending in messages as we are talking.
Yeah, yes. No, I mentioned that as I just joined your broadcast, that we are going to publish. And we do this in the spirit of transparency, because the reason you have all these propaganda and rumors flying around is because when people are starved of information, then they begin to speculate. And there will be no room for speculation.
Information
in the event that they are starved, but they are not starved now. We just got the deal the day before yesterday. And then we have announced, I've already outlined the conditions to you here, and I've also announced that they will be published on the website this week.
Excellent. Now,
and on Wednesday, we are having workshop for media, for the scribes in the media, to ensure that they understand what this is all about, so that we have a credible dissemination of information.
Thank you so much. Now, the same IMF, the PF, you mentioned this. You came armed, you came prepared. It's like we're preempting all my questions. The same IMF, the PF made several attempts to secure that, and you actually with 3 different finance ministers, but never succeeded. Then UPND 12 months, you managed to secure this deal. I know you touched on it slightly, but what specific things did you do apart from obviously physical, having financial discipline and showing that you're adhering to certain conditionalities? But is there anything that you think you may have missed out that the opposition could benefit from, that you did that they didn't do?
Well, remember that you go to the IMF and you propose to them that these are the reforms that we intend to undertake, and we are undertaking. Now, when you propose to them that this is what you intend to undertake, they'll give you a period to say, okay, we'll discuss at such a period, maybe 8 months ahead. And then after 8 months, it's time to sit down. As you discuss, they look at what you have done in the last 8 months, and they realize that you didn't do what you claimed you are going to do. So it is clear that our colleagues from the previous regime did not do that which they promised. They even brought in Lazard, if you remember, and paid them $5 million as consultation fees.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. Absolutely. Was that necessary?
To come up with a plan. You have to call people to give a plan on your behalf. So they brought people that had to write a plan for them, and still more, it was rejected. But we said to the IMF, look, you give us chance, then we have more money to spend on education. We bring free education to our people. We employ more teachers. We employ health workers. You know, we do all these things. And the IMF says, okay, we'll talk to you later. And when they looked back, they found that we have introduced free education. They look back, we have employed teachers. They look back, we have employed health workers. Then they realize, okay, really there is a new sheriff in town, and he means business. And they're doing what they said they would do. therefore it was easy for them to come on board and help us. Remember that the IMF program is not a solution to our problems, but the IMF program is a key to the solutions of our problems. We need to start now talking to our debtors, but without the IMF, we couldn't speak to our creditors. Now that we have it, we're able to speak to them. So this was key, it was paramount. So we are where we are today because this government has implemented that which it said it wants to implement. They failed to get it because their own government failed to implement what they even stated themselves that they will implement. There were reforms around the Bank of Zambia, for example, that we needed to give job security to the Bank of Zambia governor. You cannot fire the Bank of Zambia governor because the next day you woke up, you don't like the face of, you don't like his face, you don't like how his nose looks. You must have reason why you must fire the Bank of Zambia governor. We also stated that, look, we are going to take a bill to Parliament to allow that for government to contract any loans, they must first go to Parliament to get approval. And that bill is in Parliament. So it shows that we are committed to what we are saying we want to do, and they were not committed to what they said they wanted to do. It shows that we are prudent in utilizing our resources as a government, and that there are no long fingers in our administration. There's nobody pinching public funds and stealing public funds outrightly. For our colleagues, we cannot say they stole public funds. We cannot say they pinch public funds. Or we can say that there are people who are from their administration that are currently under investigations and been arrested. And some of their wives who are housewives and have never worked have $5 million in their accounts. And some of their sons who have not even been to university and are less than 30 years old have $5 million in their accounts. We are not saying they stole. We are just wondering where that money came from.
Okay, so you have shown prudence, and you feel this IMF deal is a key to sorting out Zambia's financial woes. Now, and you sound quite elated, and the president is quoted in one of the Daily Mail articles last week to be euphoric about the securing of this deal. Now, I just want to take you slightly back to another country in Africa, Ghana. Ghana secured a similar deal, which was later suspended due to non-adherence to the set conditions, the conditions that they set for themselves. How do you plan to avoid this pitfall?
I remember the late South and when he says, "Those are those, this is another." Now, that's Ghana. We are Zambia. So remember that it is not the IMF that fails. It is the government that fails. So whenever you are in a program with the IMF never fails. But you as a government, the moment you lack discipline, you fail. I may not know or be privy to why the program failed in Ghana, but I'll tell you this for free. It will not fail in Zambia. In fact, watch Zambia. It will be the best example in the world of how to work out with an IMF program.
Mr. Hamdudu, Zoz are Zoz. The UPND, the new dawn, is another.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
First of all, the team in the economic management is quite strong. These are colleagues I know. Finance Minister Msokotwana himself, who was my former lecturer, and we served together in Parliament. He's quite strong. Bank of Zambia Governor, Secretary of Treasury, these are colleagues I know. So in terms of the top economic team, I think it's great. Like what Comrade Kawana has said here, the IMF has brought this environment, opened this door. What matters now is what we planned. One of the things in the previous governments, not just PF, many previous governments, is the issue of populism and the fear to undertake bold reforms. Let me give you an example. Say nitrogen chemicals of Zambia, which is operating below capacity. One of the government now has direct money. Government owes local contractors, they have the foreign debt, don't have money. What is the solution, for example, to some of these parastatals? Zambia Railways. How can you have a train which moves from Chirawongwe to Livingstone for 4 days? Even a bicycle can arrive in Livingstone with the train. So, and then we have this surge in mining, and we have to save our roads. What's the solution? One of the issues I want to put to Mr. Kawana and the government of the day is that be bold, don't fear, don't go to what is popular. Most of the policy pronouncements that are popular are injurious to the country. By the way, I even told my colleagues, I don't agree with free education. I agree with access to education for all. I hope we can cross to another discussion.
Okay.
These populist things don't work. Access to education for all ensures every child is in school, but the methods are sustainable. The next one, I've talked about parastatal reforms. Don't fear to privatize non-performing state-owned enterprises. Let me give you examples. NCZ, you need an equity partner there. We are not saying give it away completely. Do like the Monasa regime did on Zanaco. Bring an equity partner. Had that government not brought an equity partner in Zanaco, Zanaco would have been liquidated because of political patronage and insider borrowing. You need an equity partner in the railway systems so they can inject capital and bring in discipline and basically stem out political patronage. That's why you see most of the parastatals where it's a joint venture with the private equity partners are giving better dividends to government. I can give you examples. Zanaco, Indo-Zambia Bank. But the parastatals that are 100% owned by government are liabilities to our children. They are the cause of the poverty. So why, for example, in the Zambia Railways, these railways which was brought by, Cecil Rhodes, why don't Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa form a common company so that you have a railway line that is co-owned by these countries? You cannot have these gaps. From Chilabombe to Livingstone is owned by Zambia. From Livingstone to Bentley is owned by Zimbabwe. I mean, can we have trans-regional projects? You see Tazara co-owned with Tanzania. You don't have money. We need an equity partner. Give them 50% as a rule of thumb. 50% NCZ to a private partner who has the requisite knowledge to run that. They will reinvest, re-engineer the factory so that it doesn't become obsolete. This railway line, bring an equity partner, go to Zamtel, bring an equity partner. I say it without fear, because I don't fear to say what is correct. Many governments are cowards. They want to follow the common narrative that is not informed. When Lap Green was in Zamtel, Comrade Kawana, remember I was in parliament, the numbers were swelling. Yes. Zamtel has the base, the infrastructure across the country. The companies that came in a briefcase, with a briefcase from Kenneth County International Airport, MTN, Airtel, go and check the money they are making there. Zamtel, with all the national presence in every district, with the high tech, with all the infrastructure, the backbone, today is literally bankrupt. When Rapgreen was there, the numbers were swelling. Zamtel could have been the biggest mobile company in this country. One of the best way to reform this process, which is very easy, is basically bring an equity partner. It removes abuse. It removes political patronage. I hope government, Linda.
No, we are listening. And if you check what we did the day before yesterday on Friday with Zamtel, we put up a working group there to go and brainstorm and come and tell us what it is of what they think should happen to Zamtel and how we should resolve the issues. But we told them that government pumping in money into Zamtel is not on the table. It's not an option. So we have to look at other options such as equity partnership and so on. So we are on course.
Thank you very much.
How I wish you can do that quickly, because the rebound in this economy depends on the big giants bringing something on the table. Zamtel, Zambia,
I'm
Yeah.
just aware that it is just after we have been deliberating for more than 2 hours, which is quite incredible in itself. I want to an audio for Mr. Kawana's benefits, because I would like him to comment on this, because I will just play it now.
You can't expect the people to dismantle the state because they didn't listen to us. People don't borrow. They continue. Don't borrow at the high. Continue. Don't borrow. They continue to do that. The answer is in the reverse. When we dismantle the debt, number one, a moratorium on debt acquisition. No new debts. Zero. Because you don't want to add more injury to the wound. You don't want to add salt to the wound. Number one. Number two, we restructure the debt that's in there.
I just want to write it to say a moratorium on debt.
Yeah.
In the current setup, how feasible is it? Because with the budget that I talked about, which is obviously the current administration, the only way we can survive is to borrow outside, because the entire center of what they propose towards state payment. And
this is the lack of understanding. This is why we're in this. I'm not polite to you. Because you are making this comment as a gender absolutely wrong. You can't continue borrowing. Costa, I like you, but you're wrong. And the people who think like that are wrong. First, you have no capacity to borrow anymore. Your headroom is gone. Headroom means that if you were borrowing, this is the maximum you borrow. You can borrow up to that much. You see that you just have this space. That space is not there. You have actually overshot your headroom to borrow. Whether you want to borrow or not, if you're a PF, government, you can't borrow anymore. No one will give you money. If they give you money, they'll give you Karoba. And that Karoba will people you even more. So this is a paradigm shift that we need. My friend, can't borrow. No one will give you money unless they want to take away all your assets, the whole country.
Okay, that is the president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, adding borrowing more is adding salt to the wound. We have no capacity to borrow anymore. And also, he says, if someone had to give you money, they will give you Kalova. Your sentiments on that, Mr. Kawan?
And he was right, absolutely right. Remember, the key word there is headroom. There was no more headroom to borrow. We were choked with debt. No one could give us money. We couldn't go to any multilateral financial institution like World Bank or Africa Development Bank to get money.
In 1 year,
because
you found some headroom?
We're a country in default. So what we said is that if we get onto the IMF program, if we are able to discuss with our creditors, we'll create some headroom for ourselves. We have gotten on the program. We are talking to our creditors. We have created the headroom. So
okay,
we've got it right.
Much. Okay, thank you very much. Your last sentiments, Mr. Hamdudu?
Linda Banks, thank you so much.
Linda, just Linda. Yeah, Tonga people, just Linda.
Okay, Linda. Yeah. No, but no, I like her names.
I like
how. No. Let me say this. We will only take our country to a next level if we deepen conversation in a mature manner. There is too much politics in this country. There's too much politics. Let us depoliticize development, and so that we can have a decent conversation, and like we have done today. We are not enemies. We are basically competing to save one country. And if we can just bring maturity and civility in our politics, so that, for me, I believe that people are saying, why not doing politics? It's not, for me, it's not a political season. This is time to work. Our people need services. Our people need a functioning economy. We will do politics that time, and we know how to do politics. But for now, people need service. So can we put politics in the back seat, and we deal with the economy? And you have seen my MP in Parliament. He's doing very well, by the way. And we are discussing. I told him, you are my only MP So you must be 10 MPs in one. Stand up and be objective. Research. So that there is a role of an opposition, and we can only be useful if we are evidence-based. We provide a convincing alternative. And I want to tell you, Linda Banks, that as a PNUP, small as we are, we will offer to the government of the day a very objective but unparalleled, checks and balances, so that it takes two to tango. You need a vibrant and objective opposition for a government to deliver, and to do just that without any spite. That is our role, and I hope Linda Banks, you can support us in this regard, because without a viable opposition that is objective, government can also go to sleep.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much. Now, before I let Mr. Kawana make his final submission, we have been joined by Mukelevai. Good evening. Welcome to the program. Please dive straight in.
Hamdudu, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you. We need to go to Rwanda one of these days. We've been away for a long time.
Good to see you. Good to see you, Kawana. It's good to hear from you. I'm telling you, this has been a wonderful program. I was just itching to sit here and listen. I wish this 2 hours was not even, for me, it was not even enough. You have said it all, and Hamdudu, I just wish PF was like you. I was behaving like you. I mean, your MP, and we need an opposition political party that is viable, that is constructive. I don't know what advice you would want to give to these chaps in the opposition, in the PF. I don't know, because they have lost it. I see they are disorganized, especially you know, I'm just like he's really acting so ultra-viriously. Mami Zamairo, Mami Kezo, everything. He's just confused. Everyone in the PF, they are confused. I don't understand why. Could you kindly, Hamdudu, help your colleagues and bring some kind of sanity, because they have disappointed us. Bokawana, you are doing a very good job, my brother. You are very outspoken, and like Hamdudu put it, you have not disappointed. It's only Borubi Daban is disappointed. You, my brother, you are doing a very good service to our country, and the information that you're disseminating to the people, we are happy to have you as a director of information, whatever. We need transparency. We need information. Zambians are lacking information, and now you come in and fill that gap, and we can feel that we are no longer being misled. That's why Mubonakuli, these chaps who are trying to capitalize on propaganda, they have run out of their propaganda. They are now running away from the country. That's why you see them running.
They're resorting to insults, insulting women.
They're now resorting to insult, attacking, personal attacks. So you are doing a good job, because we are happy, we are following. This is what we meant by bringing in the new sheriff in town. But Hamdudu, my brother, I love you. You need to stand still and come up with those programs that especially the Zambia Railways. I want to see the speed train as well coming in. I mean, it's a very good suggestion, my brother. I hope Wakawana ni government waka in the mautwa ziwa bolela bo Triple H. Please give this gentleman an ear, and I know you are a listening government. That's why we voted you in. So we want sanity, and please prosecute them. Don't even feel shy. prosecute those chaps, those chaps who have amounts, unexplainable amount of money in their wives' account that don't work. Please, let us know. Tell us their names. Don't even hide, so that we shame them while they are still being prosecuted. I think I end here. Job well done.
Thank you so much. Now then, goodness, I can't add anything to that. Thank you so much, Bomkelevai. Last sentiment, Mr. Kawana.
Yes, thank you very much. Firstly, I want to thank Triple H for the very wonderful appearance. I think this is, like we have all said, a government works when it has a good opposition on its toes. Yes. And this is objective opposition worthy to listen to. And like I've said, Triple H is one of those people whose voices, even as a government, we stop to listen to. I want to state that even the suggestion on Zambia Railways is something that we are also looking into. But first, we have to clean the mess. Remember that we got money from the Eurobond, over 300 million, that we pumped in allegedly into Zambia Railways, claiming that we are buying new coaches, putting rail line, and making it run to about 80 kilometers per hour. And yet, even Kampando Konghala Pogulie, Echiri and Dalama, they must pay back that money. And whoever touched that money will have to pay for it. So we are investigating, and they will have their day in court. I just want to end by saying, I just want to end by saying, please, thank you very much for the opportunity. You can call on us anytime. We'll be available to provide information to the Zambian people. What we want is a transparent government, and we are not shy to talk to the people, to tell them what their government is doing, even if it may not be pleasant to their ears. But when they demand the information, we will give it to them. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Now then, this has been another presentation of the Linda Banks Show on TV Bakwetu. Thank you so much, viewers, for having tuned in. It's been an exciting, quite fiery in places discourse. And Mr. Mukele never disappoints with his funny sentiments. I'd like to thank my guest, Mr. Ivy Hamdudu. My daughter's got a very British accent, but she normally says your name beautifully, and she learned it during the elections. They'll be like, Hamdudu Ivy, and calls out the point. So it's quite an interesting conversation in our house.
Thank you.
Which is quite funny. And thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. Mr. Kawana, I'm indebted to you, us as a team as Bakwetu. We're so grateful, aren't we, Mr. Mkelevai? We're so grateful. You're always available at whatever time. And you actually were supposed to be somewhere else, but you finally made your way back, which is fantastic. You're doing a great job, great service to our nation. And so we look forward to the next one more year, see what your government can do. If you can achieve so much within a year, who knows what's going to happen in the next 3 years. Viewers, this is it. Till next time, God bless you and God bless our country. Good night.
Thank you.